Podcast Answer Man, episode number 266.
Entertaining, educational, and encouraging content that makes a difference. This is GSPN.TV. Join the community.
Well, hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Podcast Answer Man. My name is Cliff Ravenscraft, and this, my friends, is the podcast about podcasting, helping you take your show to the next level. It doesn't matter if you're a brand new podcaster, if you have been podcasting for many years, or you haven't quite yet recorded that first episode. There's something we can all do to take our show to the next level. That's right, my friends, and this week I am going to finally announce officially how I am taking my community engagement to a level that most people wouldn't even dream of, at least when it comes to an online community built around a podcast. But you know what? More than likely, there's been another podcaster out there that has done this. But we're going to talk about that in just a little bit. In fact, we're going to talk about all kinds of wonderful things like last week we talked about the rumor that Apple was going to create a podcast application for iOS. Well, that's happened. I'm going to give you my thoughts on it now that it is physically here, already delivered on our iOS devices. I'm also going to be talking about the special community event that I'm planning for next year, and just what I expect that will come out of that. Also going to answer a question from Michael, who's asking about a premium model or a freemium model. We'll get a little bit into that and also talk about a few other things that I'm sure will randomly come up. But before we get started, one of the things I want to do is start off with our random plug of the week. This week's random plug of the week goes out to my good friend Jamie Tardy of the Eventual Millionaire podcast. Now, I was blessed to have the opportunity to be introduced to Jamie a couple months before Blog World NYC. She had introduced herself to me, and we had an opportunity to talk via Skype, had a great time getting to know her. Then I got to meet her at Blog World, and she was also a speaker at Blog World, and she gave a wonderful talk titled Become an Expert and Build an Audience with Major Press. Now, you know that I had done an episode of Podcast Answer Man a couple months back talking about making yourself newsworthy. That was an interview that I did with Joel Bogus and Pei Kang, and that episode had a tremendous amount of response and a lot of people who have had an amazing amount of success. Now, they gave some wonderful tips and some inspiration and insight on how you can use traditional media to get more attention to what you're doing. And I think that Jamie's talk from Blog World NYC is just icing on the cake. It's even further inspiration with some additional insights on how to make this stuff happen. The cool thing that Jamie did is she took the audio of her Blog World NYC talk, and she's included it as the latest episode of her podcast. The podcast, again, is titled The Eventual Millionaire Podcast. I encourage you to go look it up in iTunes or the new podcasting application or the podcasts application on the iOS device. In fact, I just encourage you to do it there. Just look up Eventual Millionaire, and you'll be able to find that and subscribe. Anyway, I'll also put a link to that particular episode in the show notes. So if you go to podcastanswerman.com/266, you will be able to find that episode as well. Jamie, you did an amazing job. It was a pleasure to meet you. And folks, if you find her podcast, you'll like it, make sure you tell Jamie that you heard about her from the Podcast Answer Man. All right, it is here, the official release of Apple's Podcasts application, and I'll be honest with you, I'm actually pleasantly surprised. I'll give you my thoughts on it. I have a couple concerns still, but I also have a couple feelings about why I think things are going in a much better direction than I thought they were. But first, let me do this. This is the description of the application from the App Store. It says Podcasts app is the easiest way to discover, subscribe to, and play your favorite podcasts on your iPhone, iPad, and iPod Touch. Now, let me take that statement. And do I agree with that? Yeah, I think it is, honestly. For the average person that is not used to podcasting, I think that the Podcasts app will be the easiest way to discover, subscribe to, and play your favorite podcasts on your iPhone, iPad, and iPod Touch. I do agree with that statement. Then they continue in their description to say, explore hundreds of thousands of free audio and video podcasts from the podcast's catalog and play the most popular podcasts organized for you by topic with the all-new Top Stations feature. Now, don't be confused by the Top Stations feature. The Top Stations, it's kind of like they're calling podcasts a station, if you will, because when I went in there, it's not like networks or anything like that, but they are literally podcasts with episodic material. But basically, it's a podcast, it's a show, and they're calling it a station under this particular feature for Discovery, which I think is really cool. And what's really neat is that if you go under technology on the dial, and then in the subcategory under podcasts, Podcast Answer Man is currently listed there. I think it's in the number 2 position. So I am one of those top stations under podcasts in the technology category. So thank you to each and every one of you who have gone out of your way to leave a review and post a 5-star rating for my podcast, because had you not done that, I would not be there. So thank you for doing that. I really appreciate those ratings and reviews. So anyway, that's the description of the application from Apple. And let me read to you the features that they have highlighted, things you can do with this application. First, it says you can enjoy all of your audio and video podcasts in a single app. Okay, that makes sense. That's not new to just this application. I don't know any podcasting application that didn't allow you to do both. But it is a feature, and by all means, highlight it. Next up, they say that you can explore hundreds of thousands of podcasts, including shows in over 40 languages. That's cool. That's absolutely true. Next, they say that you can try the innovative new Top Stations feature to find new podcast series in a variety of topics, including arts, business, comedy, music, news, and sports, and more. I love that they're doing this. This is good for those people who have never heard of a podcast before, they have never heard of any of this stuff before. These features communicate a lot, and I love the fact that they're highlighting over and over again hundreds of thousands of podcasts. They're using the language podcasts. I want to emphasize that. Podcasts, it's the podcasts application. It is the podcasts in here. And yes, they do have the top stations, but they even say the innovative new top stations feature help you to discover new podcast series in a variety of topics. And they're basically letting you know, hey, these podcast things that we're talking about here, there's business, there's comedy, there's music, there's news, there's sports, and more. The next feature that they give is browse audio by video or audio content, or see what's most popular in the top charts. Tap subscribe for your favorites and automatically receive new episodes, easy for me to say, for free as they become available. My gosh, guys, I cannot begin to tell you how important this language is. This is a very good statement. And this, my concern with Apple, quote unquote, not getting it, they got it. They got it, and they're communicating this in a wonderful way. It says tap subscribe for your favorites and automatically receive new episodes for free as long as they become available. This is amazing. This is the perfect way to communicate to this mass audience out there of what a podcast is, and that they're using the word subscribe with the words for free in the same sentence. Very, very important for people to hear. And this is one of the benefits of pulling podcasts out of the iTunes store, because when you hear store and you hear subscribe, you think magazine subscriptions, it's going to cost me money. I've given them my credit card. I'm afraid if I hit this button, I'm going to be charged. Whereas you can actually, if you want to, in this application, discover all of these podcasts and episodes, and without even hitting a subscribe button, you're able to listen to them. And I love that you can do that. And it actually is reinforcing that if you do hit that subscribe button, we're not going to be asking you for your password or anything like that. We're not asking you to okay the charge to your card. This is free stuff, my friends. All right. Next up, they say that you can stream episodes or download to listen while offline. And I'm glad that they give you both options. And to be honest with you, I've played around with it and they do a pretty good job. They do. They did include, I love this, the skip forward and backward options, the playback options. I wish they weren't hidden behind the artwork and was a little bit easier. I think they'll probably adjust that in the future. But if I'm not mistaken, I think it's skip forward 30, skip backward 10. I haven't had enough time with it to memorize what all's there because I've played with so many other applications. But still, you do have the ability to skip those very long commercials on your favorite Twit podcast. So that's a very good thing when they go into an Audible ad for like 13 minutes into a 2-hour show. So Leo Laporte, love you, man. But man, those things, they're long at times. Anyway, you can turn now. Now there might be other podcasting applications that have this feature. I've not seen any that I've ever played with, or if the ones that I've played with have them, I hadn't dug deep enough. But it was very easy for me to just randomly come across it. And I do remember seeing this: turn on sleep timer to automatically stop playing a podcast while listening in bed. Can I tell you something? How awesome is it that Apple understands we're listening to these things in bed? I thought it was just me. I really did. I thought I was the only person that was listening to a podcast in bed, and you've got this 2-hour podcast from the Twit network, and you're out like a light, in 15 minutes, and then all of a sudden you wake up the next day, and a couple hours later you get in and you're ready to listen to some podcasts, and it says, oh, I've already listened to that. But how far did I get into it? And sometimes you feel, I love this. I would love to be able to, and now I can, actually start playing a podcast and say, you know what, shut this thing off after 15 minutes. I'll be out anyway. And then I can go back and start where I left off. I think that is awesome. Sleep timer on a podcast, sweet. All right. The next one, it says, share your favorite episodes with friends using Twitter, messages, and mail. Now, I think that Facebook is going to be baked into iOS 6, so you'll be able to do it there as well. Now, the interesting thing that they did here is they've created a product for the mass audience. These are the non-technical people. And when you are sharing on Twitter or via your text messages or whatever, or your mail application, when you're sharing these podcasts, it's providing a direct link to the RSS feed. It's not providing a link that's going to open up the podcasts app in somebody's thing, or a web version of somebody else's iTunes web page listing. Anyway, what it is it's giving you a direct FeedBurner feed, or whatever the feed is for your podcast. And I thought that was very, very interesting, although I'm a little bit concerned for people who don't understand that, especially for those of you. Now, see, I use FeedBurner, and I think this is totally cool. If you go to feeds, feeds.feedburner.com/PAM for Podcast Answer Man. And if you do that, you'll see that it doesn't matter what browser you have. FeedBurner actually has what we call a stylized RSS feed, meaning that they've actually kind of created a way to display this graphically that makes a lot of sense. It really does. And so I think it's great for those of us who are using FeedBurner. Now, for those of you who don't follow my advice, which is fine, you don't have to. I mean, my way isn't the only way. It's the best way. No. It's the best way that's worked for me. How's that? And of course, I hadn't tried it many other ways. So, but however, there are some of you who have RSS feeds that's pulled right off of your WordPress and this or that. And to be honest with you, when you load it up in Google Chrome and we click on that, it's going to be the ugliest looking thing. It's going to be a mess of jumble code, or so I'm kind of questioning Apple's decision to share a podcast in this particular way. I think that they could do something there. They could kind of create like they do with the copy link, and it takes you to the web version of a thing. I'm really shocked that they did that. Really shocked that they did that. But I do love that they give you the ability to share it with your social network. I think that's cool. Now they say optionally sync your favorite episodes from iTunes on your Mac or PC. So I haven't played around with that. As far as I'm concerned, I am not connecting my iTunes to my phone ever again. Matter of fact, I had quit doing that ever since I was using the Pocket Casts application, which I'll tell you in a little bit why I'm going to stop using that. And I know the guys over at Pocket Cast are going to be very upset to hear me say that and to share it with you guys publicly. But I'm going to tell you why I'm going to quit using the Pocket Cast application in just a little bit. And then here's the really cool feature. They say that you can sync your episode playback for seamless transition between devices. So, for example, if you have an iPad and an iPhone, you can actually, have the application running on both. And I imagine that I guess I'm going to just assume, I haven't loaded this up on the iPad yet. I only got it on the iPhone. But anyway, I'm assuming that your subscriptions will all sync over. And if I stopped listening, if you, like, for example, paused episode 266 of Podcast Answer Man here right now on your iPhone, and then you go over to your iPad and click play, it should pick up right here. So now I will tell you that Jesse Poteet, he's a friend of mine here in the GSPN.TV community, and he wrote this in the chat room earlier this morning. He says, I like the episode playback sync. Only thing missing from that is the sync doesn't work on the desktop iTunes, only on mobile devices. And I've heard this from a couple other people that were complaining online. I imagine that they will get that worked out as well. I really do believe that they'll get that feature built in as well. But it does say syncing between devices and specifically iOS devices. So it doesn't say that specifically, but that's what they mean when they say devices and not desktop and not computers. Although I could see where many people would assume a device is a computer as well. But anyway, it's not. There are some requirements. One, you need iOS 5.1 or later to be able to run this application. And if you're going to optionally sync episodes, so basically syncing episodes, maybe even that time, it says it requires 10.6.3 or later. So maybe you need a newer version of iTunes. I don't know. I haven't played around with that. I don't even plan on syncing those two. All right. So what are my thoughts? What are my thoughts on this new application? Well, let me tell you. First of all, I'll share with just my slight concerns. First and foremost, like I had feared, the podcasts application is just like iBooks application in that I had to, number one, choose to install it, and number two, I have the ability, if I should desire, to delete it. So unlike the Stocks application, which I would love to delete off of my phone, and the newsstand, I think, is something I can't delete off my phone, and there's a bunch of other Apple-related things, but for some reason, iBooks and podcasts are applications I can delete off my phone. That's okay. I mean, it's just a slight concern. Now, from what I'm hearing, my good friend Kim pointed me to a web page on the iTunes store where it featured a list of the built-in applications that you get when you get a brand new iPad, and iBooks is one of those. So I'm hoping that when somebody gets iOS 6 and it updates, it automatically puts the podcast app on there. I remember, I think when iBooks came out and I upgraded, it asked me, do you want to install this application? I don't know what they're going to do, but my hope is that when people, millions of people continue to buy these devices, that podcasts is at least pre-installed on there. The user interface is not nearly as bad as I thought it might be, though it does take quite a bit to get used to it. And I'm thinking it might take you maybe as much as a day or two if you're really used to using some other applications. For those who have never subscribed to a podcast before in their life. They have really, at this point, no idea what it is. But then they all of a sudden see this new app. They hear all the news about it. Well, guess what? I think it's going to be just fine for them. Although I will tell you, it was a little buggy the first couple hours that it came out. Album artwork wasn't pulling up. It was things. And honestly, I think it was just because it had become so popular, their servers couldn't deliver all the stuff. I really believe they couldn't handle it all. But it seems to be working much better today. Certainly today. Guarantee it is a ton better today. Also, here's a concern. I noticed that there's no way to currently leave or write a review or rate a podcast from the application. I think this is a major feature that should be there. And I would imagine they're going to put it into the future release of this thing. And I certainly hope that comes very soon. Because, I really do. I see this as being the primary way people with an iOS device will be getting their apps. And I'm going to encourage each of you who are content creators, dude, dump your other third-party podcasts. As much as you like them and maybe you don't think this one's full-featured enough, at least go in and double up your subscriptions in iTunes. And I'll tell you why in a little bit. Anyway. But there's no way to review or rate somebody's podcast from this application, and I'm going to use the word yet. I would imagine that has to be coming. Next, there's no way to add a podcast RSS feed for a podcast that is not already in iTunes. And now that is a major feature for me, and it would almost be... believe it or not, did you know that there are some people out there who have created podcasts and they have never submitted their podcast to the iTunes store? I know. It's crazy, right? Well, they're out there. And have I subscribed to one or two of those in the past? Yes, I have. Today, every podcast that I would even want is in the iTunes store. I guess we need to stop calling it the iTunes store. We need to start, it's the podcasts catalog, because that's the language they're using. It is the podcasts catalog, podcasts catalog, podcasts catalog. I've got to train myself. Everybody say it with me. Podcasts catalog. It's not the iTunes listing. It's not the iTunes podcast directory. It is the podcasts catalog. Okay, got it. Moving forward. But anyway, the fact is that not only are there some, and we're saying very few, but... not only are there some podcasts that have never submitted, there are a handful of podcasts that have been rejected from or kicked out of the podcasts catalog put together by Apple. All right, so what happens in that case? Now, I don't know anybody that I would want to listen to that's happened to, but it's a reality. And so can you go back to the features? Let's see here. Enjoy all of your audio and video podcasts in a single app. You know what? I think I went back and I said that I agreed with that, and I'm going to say no. That is actually a lie. That is false advertisement. Enjoy all of your audio and video podcasts in a single app. No, only the ones in iTunes. Okay, so technically speaking, that's not true. Now that I think about it. Anyway. So I don't know if they're going to add that. Now, here's the deal. In iTunes on the desktop software, guess what? You can manually do this. And maybe they'll tuck away a little special feature for us to do that in the future. All right. Last but not least on my concerns is currently there is no way to search for a podcast by podcast author. This is horrible. There are some people out there, that their names are recognizable. For example, if you go in and search under Michael Hyatt, you won't find his podcast. And I think maybe a temporary solution is to take, your podcast, which is titled, This Is Your Life, and put hyphen Michael Hyatt in there or something like that. And I saw some interaction between him and I believe Andy Traub and maybe some other people where it said, potentially to do that. And I'm not sure, but maybe Michael's already got his name in there, but maybe it cuts off after a certain number of characters. I'm not sure. I haven't had time to investigate a lot of that further, but certainly, if you go in and search for Cliff Ravenscraft, only two of I've got, I think probably more than 20 or 30 podcasts in the iTunes store, and only two of them pull up. And I think it's because my name is up at the top there. So anyway, so those are my slight concerns. What am I most excited about, though? And I am very excited about this. I will tell you, much more than I thought that I would be. Number one is that the iTunes desktop is actually featuring this in the iTunes desktop app store pretty heavily. So if you have the iTunes store and you go to App Store, the podcast is getting front and center attention. It's like, wow, this is a big deal. Not to mention the fact that news industry, tech, all the tech news industry outlets are talking about this. I'm sure it's probably broken out into some of the non-tech. That this is major news and publicity for the podcasting industry. Hands down, this is good news. Also, on the App Store, when you go to the App Store on the iOS, it's also being featured as the number one featured app in the App Store. Apple does a really good job of featuring their official apps, so I think it'll continue to get some highlighting things there. And even though this is only the third day the app has been out, it's already, if you click on the top charts and under free apps, it's already in the number 3 position for top downloaded apps available for free. Guys, this is huge. This is major, all right? And why is this major? Because Engadget, if you go to Engadget.com, Engadget reported back in April of this year that there are 365 million iOS devices out there today. I'm going to say that again. 365 million iOS devices out there today. That is awesome. And most of all, what is the most exciting thing to me above anything else that I've mentioned is that I am assuming that if you click the subscribe button, or if you start downloading or clicking play and streaming these episodes, when you click those buttons to listen to them, I am assuming, and I know what happens when we assume, but I'm assuming that Apple is going to be counting those when they look at their ranking. So when they start ranking your episode, and stuff like that, I've been told that, the number of people who are subscribed, the number of people who are downloading, then, certainly I know reviews written and the 5-star ratings certainly go towards the ranking. But when it comes to, those top 100 or the top 10 in each of those categories, my friends, I know that downloads plays a part of it. So here's what I'm asking you. Everybody, please go and download the iOS version of the podcast application. Subscribe to Podcast Answer Man in that application. Go to it, physically click the subscribe button and listen to my show from there. And I have no doubt that if you do that, it will even elevate my ranking and ratings ranking much higher than it already is. And here's the deal. If I'm subscribed to your podcast, I'm doing the same for you. Even though, and I'm going to tell you, I like Pocket Casts better. I know some of you like Downcast better. I know some of you like Instacast better. I know some of you like Stitcher better. But I will tell you right now, I'm going to do this as a favor to any of the content creators that I listen to their content. I am going to do them a favor and subscribe to them in the Podcasts app from Apple, because I know that will help their rankings. Or at least I'm assuming so. And here's the deal. If they add in version 1.1 or 2.0 the ability to write reviews right from the application, look out, my friends, because the reviews and ratings will come in like you would not believe. I can't believe that they let it out. They left it out this time, but I do believe they'll put it in, and this is big news. Guys, I never thought I'd be this happy about Apple making an official app, but they got it right. They're missing a few things, but it is awesome. All right, so what do we do next here? I'll tell you what, let's turn over to a question real quick and give me a good 90-second break from talking. So we're going to turn it over to Michael. Michael, take it away.
Hey, Cliff, it's Michael Bolden with 10th Radio at radio.10thamendmentcenter.com, calling from Los Angeles for Podcast Answer Man. And I had a question. I was actually thinking of taking my regular weekly podcast, which is an hour-long show that I stream live through Mixler, and adding kind of a freemium model where I did like an additional behind-the-scenes or a post-show show for a monthly fee for my listeners, a small few dollar contribution or a regular recurring payment that I think is pretty marketable for my supporters and listeners. But, well, why I'm calling, I have no clue how to do that. I mean, is this something that you are aware of, a good way to set it up? Is there a membership plugin for WordPress that could be used for it? Or do you recommend maybe just like password protecting a particular page? Or is there a way to have maybe excerpts through a special iTunes feed that they can listen to part of it and then have to buy the remaining portion of it? I just don't know if that's even a viable option with downloadable podcast files that I'm hosting over on Libsyn. So any thoughts on that? Feedback would be most appreciated, and looking forward to hearing your insight on this. Thanks.
All right, Michael, thank you so much for the question. And first and foremost, I want to just say my number one recommendation, whatever you're doing, don't take anything that you're giving away already for free and withholding any of that information. I mean, if you're going to do anything extra and allow people the opportunity to get more for, at a premium price, only do that with extra content that you create. And my recommendation on top of that is when you go about creating that extra content, don't let up on what you've been doing before. Don't cut back, make them shorter the free shows, shorter shows. Don't miss out on the consistency that people have come to recognize from you. Learn from my experience in the past. I did this. I actually had a freemium model where basically with our entertainment-based television shows, we created content on a weekly basis, and we had, at one point I was creating 7 to 15 podcast episodes a week. And our entertainment shows and also some of our technology shows, not Podcast Answer Man, but Help I Got a Mac, Business Tech Weekly, Social Media Serenity, and all of our entertainment shows, what we did is we gave away 1 to 2 episodes per month for free on the free feed that you can get in the podcasts catalog. I almost got it down there. Okay, the Apple Podcast catalog. However, if you wanted to, if you discovered us there, you subscribe to the show, you like the free content, but you wanted more, we actually, you're getting 1 or 2 episodes per month on that free feed. But if you want an episode every single week without fail of this podcast, but also every other podcast that we have, then for $10 a month, you could become a Plus member. And as a Plus member, you get access to every episode of every podcast that we produce. And you would get a custom RSS feed so that you could subscribe, which of course you couldn't take this custom RSS feed and put it into this new podcasts application from Apple because it doesn't allow you to put in anything that's not in the iTunes anything that's available in the Apple Podcasts catalog. Gosh, that's going to take a while to train myself. Anyway, but is it possible to do this? Yes, it is possible to do this. I will tell you what, in January of 2011, I shut that down. I stopped charging people, making people pay for any of my content as far as when it comes to podcasts subscribable via RSS. And it was a difficult decision. And I will tell you that in December of 2010, when I was making this decision, I did a profit loss statement and I had brought in more than $28,000 from people who were paying that. All right. So in 2010, I made over $28,000 doing exactly what you're talking about doing. Now, the thing is I was creating 7 to 15 episodes a week, probably spending no less than 20 to 30 hours a week on content production. And so when you add it all up and you think $28,000 a year, guess what? Not very good. It wasn't making me a lot of money when it comes to the amount of time. So I had some difficult decisions, and I made a decision to give away all of our content available for free. And if people wanted to, they can still contribute voluntarily. And thankfully, many people continue to do that today. Certainly the number of Plus memberships is way down as far as active contributions is way down from what it used to be. But I've shifted my focus of where I generate income from, and most of that is by creating products and services. And I really, honestly, Michael, that's what I recommend. I recommend that you either create your own products or services, or you find other people that have a product or service that trust immensely, you think is extremely valuable for your intended target audience, and become an affiliate for that product or service. That's where the money can be made in podcasting. Other option would be in sponsorship from a company, or potentially advertising if you have big, gigantic audience. But sponsorships are a little bit different. I don't have time to go into that right now. But to your question, is it possible to do this freemium thing? Yes, it is possible. If you want to do the custom RSS feed that you mentioned, that can be quite difficult. It's a technical challenge. It took me 2 weeks to develop my own model of doing this, and it was not fun. It was not easy, and to be honest with you, it took way more to manage those premium memberships than I wanted to put into it anymore. And I'm so thankful for my community that did support us through that way, because I don't think I would have ever been able to get to the place today where our network and my business is financially had it not been for that model. But I certainly don't think, if I knew what I knew now, I wouldn't have gone that route. I would have never gone to the freemium model if I knew then what I know now. And I wouldn't recommend anybody else to go to a freemium model. Where you're charging people for that extra content. I think you're better off with products and services. And so, technically, you might consider, my tutorials, is that freemium content? I guess some people in some way, but what I'm saying is that I'm not creating episodic content that you're paying for on a monthly basis there. Instead it's products or services. That's my focus. Now, I'm not telling anybody how to do it the way that I did it once, because number one, it's a nightmare. Number two, I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy. And number three, it didn't always work, and I spent too much time administrative keeping it working. So forget about how I did it. I'm going to tell you there are two services, and there's probably more out there, but two services that promote, and I've never tried either of these, by the way. Please understand this. I am not endorsing either of these services. They may both fail you miserably. I have no idea. But two services out there tout that they can do the custom RSS feeds per member, and they can shut those down if that person stops their subscription. Premiumcast.com, nanacast.com. Those are the two services. Again, the first one is premiumcast.com. The second one, nanacast.com. I make no endorsements, no guarantees whatsoever. You try them. If you lose your money, I have nothing. I've never tried them. But supposedly they can do it. Now, if that's something that you're definitely going to go towards and you want to create that content, then by all means do it. I know that Libsyn has created some kind of password protected page option. Honestly, I think that you can keep the commission that they would keep and create your own password protected page. That's just my opinion. Blueberry, I think, is trying to work something out and maybe has already introduced it. I'm not sure. My recommendation, if you want to look into all options, contact support at libsyn.com, support at blueberry.com. Email those guys and ask them if they have premium solutions and if they can explain how they work out. So personally, products and services where it's at. Can you do it? Yes. Was I successful at doing it? It depends on what you call successful. Many people would look at my profit and loss statement and look at things where they were financially and consider that to be a success. When I look at if I knew what I know now about products and services, would I go back and do I consider that to be a success? I consider it to be a success in that it was definitely a major learning process for me that I'm glad I did. And I'm glad it's and I'm not going to call it a mistake, but it's certainly a learning experience that as a consultant and coach for other people who are looking to do this, it certainly gives me a lot of valuable experience to draw upon when helping people decide whether or not it's right for them. And by the way, with that, I am not telling you, Michael, or anybody else listening, that this is not right for you. I'm not telling you to not do it. I'm just saying that for me, I have found that this is not the best model out there. There are so many better opportunities for you. All right. We're going to wrap up here quickly. I know Stephanie, my wife, wants to come down. We're going to record our episode of Family from the Heart much sooner than, or half an hour earlier than normally scheduled. But I do want to let you guys know one of the big things that we're going to be announcing there, and I want to make the official announcement here, and that is, my friends, taking our community engagement to a level that, to be honest with you, is a dream come true, and dreams is what it's all about, and it is the GSPN.TV Community Dream Cruise. Now, here's the deal. I don't talk about GSPN.TV a ton on Podcast Answer Man. I don't know if you guys know this, but if you're listening to my voice right now, and this is not the first time that you've listened to my voice, but you've heard my voice before, and it's because of Podcast Answer Man or anything about Podcast Answer Man, Podcast Answer Man falls under the umbrella of this thing called GSPN.TV, the Generally Speaking Production Network. GSPN.TV is where it all got started. It all started as a hobby. And this thing that I do here, this podcast consultant coaching, running this entire business, this all came out of GSPN, the Generally Speaking Production Network. And Podcast Answer Man was originally just one show of many shows, and it still is one show of many shows. Now, today, it's the number one focused show that I focus on, along with Family from the Heart with my wife. But Podcast Answer Man is a production of the Generally Speaking Production Network. I mean, that's why at the beginning of the show, you hear this.
Entertaining, educational, and encouraging content that makes a difference. This is GSPN.TV. Join the community.
Now, here's what I want to tell you, that if you go to gspn.tv, you'll see a lot of language about join the community and what it means to join the community. And oftentimes I kind of say, you got the gspn.tv community and you've got the Podcast Answer Man community. Well, actually, the Podcast Answer Man community, those of you who make up the community of people who listen to and or engage with me around Podcast Answer Man and this Podcast Answer Man brand, technically speaking, the Podcast Answer Man is one subset. It is a sub-community of a larger community. Now, it just so happens, and it's weird for me, and I'll just say this. I mean, you know me. I just authentically tell you what I'm thinking. It's weird for me because like 95% of all of my income comes from this one a smaller community within this much larger community, and it's where I'll admit, over the last couple of years, it's where I focus most of my time, effort, and energy on generating income. But that's where if you are a member of the Podcast Answer Man community, you consider yourself a loyal listener, a follower, a fan, whatever you call yourself. I call you a community member. And if you're a member of the Podcast Answer Man community, what you may not know is that you're a member of the GSPN community. You are. And what's really weird is, and it's so fun to see this happen, there are people who have never heard of Podcast Answer Man before, and the first thing they ever hear from myself and or my wife is like the Twilight Saga podcast or the Hunger Games podcast. And they're a part of the Hunger Games fan podcast community, which is just like, although quite different than, the Podcast Answer Man community, which is they're both sub-communities of the GSPN, the overall network community. So I say all of that to say that because you listen to this show, because you engage and interact with this show, you are a member of the GSPN community. Now, when I say you're a member, that doesn't mean you've paid me anything. You don't have to pay anything to be a part of to be a member of the GSPN community. And we do have Plus membership, which just says that you have contributed a minimum of $1 at any one point in time, and that makes you a Plus member and stuff like that. But still, you're a member of the GSPN community. And what's cool is we have literally tens of thousands of people all over the world who listen to and subscribe to GSPN content, including Podcast Answer Man. And we have hosted many meetups over the years since December of 2005. I'd say we've probably officially had somewhere between 10 to 15 meetups, many of them large ones here in our hometown, several in the cities that we go and visit, such as New York City, Chicago, Los Angeles. I mean, we've gone and had some amazing meetups. My friends, we are taking our community meetups to a level that is amazing. We are going on a Disney Dream Cruise in June of 2013. And here's the thing. We just barely mentioned this a year ago. We talked about it for maybe 2 weeks just to let people know that we had this big dream of doing a cruise. And we did put up an Eventbrite page, and I think we have, as of today, we have 57 people who said, as soon as you have the information about the cruise, the only thing we told them, it was going to be in the summer of 2013, probably late June, and that's all they knew. But we said, if you're super serious, then RSVP here to let us know, so we can get an idea of how much interest there is. So already 57 people who have said they're coming on this cruise if we plan it. Well, my friends, I am here to tell you today that my wife and I and our 3 children, our family of 5, are fully paid, 100% fully paid to board the 4-night Bahamas Dream Disney Cruise. It's on the cruise liner, the Disney Dream. That's why we're calling it the Dream. But anyway, it is the GSPN.TV Dream Cruise. If you want to find out more information, please go to gspn.tv/cruise. gspn.tv/cruise, and you'll find out more information. And here's the deal. I want to invite you to come. And a big thing is, I'm going to tell you, financially, it will not benefit us in any way whatsoever. In fact, maybe I'll talk more about the cruise in the future and about how it all happened and why it took us so long to finally do the things that we're doing. Originally, I thought we were going to be able to. Everybody promised me. They say, Cliff, you're going to be able to do a cruise, and if you get a couple, if you get 30 people, you and your wife and your family could cruise for free. Yeah, not on Disney, and not on anything that would be worth sailing on during the later part of June of 2013. So it doesn't matter. It's going to be an amazing time. This is not going to be a profitable experience financially for us, but it is going to be a profitable experience for our community in a way that honestly money can't pay for. And I invite you to come and see an online community like none other. The GSPN.TV Community Dream Cruise. More information, gspn.tv/cruise. And it looks like I have 2 minutes of music. So I will tell you real quickly. Podcasting A to Z starts July 9th. I have 22 students signed up already. The limit is 30 people. I can't take more than 30 people in this thing because of how much time, effort, and energy I devote to the students. So 8 spots left if you're interested. podcastingA2Z.com. Again, that's podcastingA2Z.com. Use promo code, discount code actually, PAM for Podcast Answer Man. Promo code PAM in the shopping cart will get you $100 off. But if you're going to sign up and you've been thinking about it, sign up today because those other 8 spots are going to go fast. And I don't know when I'm going to do another one of these. I may do another one in 2012, Not 100% sure. I've got some other projects in mind and really focusing on the Podcast Mastermind, my friends. That's my number one thing. Podcasting A to Z and Podcast Mastermind are equal, in my opinion, in July. But Podcast Mastermind is where I focus a lot of my energy these days. Anyway, podcastinga2z.com, promo code PAM for Podcast Answer Man. And then one last thing, I want to say special thank you to those of you who are using my Bluehost affiliate link to sign up for your hosting account. As you know, I get a very significant commission when you do that. And I want to thank the folks behind FTI, Frank Tom Indian, -techtalk.com. That's FTI-techtalk.com. And also ScottAkridge.com. That's AKRIDGE.com. ScottAkridge.com. Thank you guys for using my Bluehost affiliate link. God bless you all. I'll talk to you again next week. Until then, take everything you do to the next level. And subscribe to this podcast using the Podcasts app.